Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. Thanks for tuning back in. Guys, today I want to talk about a discontinued bait that you can still find. I still find it occasionally in bait shops. I still find it occasionally, at garage sales and flea markets, things like that. I literally just bought 4 bags 3 weeks ago at a muskie expo here in central Wisconsin. So it's something that is out there, and if you can find it, guys, I highly suggest you picking them up because they really work well. Before I get into divulging what specific bait I'm talking about, I do want to remind you guys, though, that I have additional content and I do a monthly live stream for my members. So if that's something that you're interested in, getting some additional content where you can have direct communication with me, please check out the membership information, become a member of the channel, and you can engage in all of those additional videos as well as the monthly live streams. The information is right on my YouTube homepage if you hit the join button or you go to the membership tab. Okay, guys, so a little background on this bait. Years ago, I had gotten some of these bags of baits when I was probably back in high school or college, and I used them and I caught several fish on them. Well, once I started accumulating a bunch more tackle, as you guys know I have here in the room, I kind of put them to the side. And one of the things I've done over the years is when I get a bunch of baits that I don't use anymore, I throw them in a box and I take them up to my parents' lake house where my dad uses them, my brothers use them, and whoever goes up there. And my dad came to me years ago and he goes, "Hey, you need to use these more." And I was like, "Well, why, Dad? Have you been catching them on it?" He goes, "I'm catching them way better on this than any other stick worm." And at that time, he was throwing a lot of the Cincos, the Yum Dingers, a lot of various things. And specifically, the bait he was talking about was this old Riverside Lures floating air fry. And the air fry was one that I never really threw that much. The air fry is just a fry style bait. And I went and I took that bait and I went to my next couple of tournaments, professional level events. And I remember just having them because my dad's like, "You should give these a try at some point." So I had a bag sitting in the day box of my boat. And I was at an event on the Harris chain and I had a couple of bedfish that I could not get interested in anything else. And I was going through all the bags of stuff I had in my day box and I came across the floating air fry. And I put one on and I literally caught both those fish that I had worked for like an hour on my first 5 casts with both, the same bait. It was a red shad colored one. So at that point I started using them more. But when I was younger, I never even used the air fry. What I used was like the air lizard. So this is the floating air lizard. And if you guys remember, so Riverside Lures made this whole floating series. So you had the lizards, you got the craws, the air fries. They made like 5 or 6 different baits in this floating air series. And the whole idea here is they have a bunch of these chambers in the baits that grab air, and because of the way they're formed, they don't really release much air, so they float off the bottom. But one of the things that I found that I really like with these is because they've got all of these air chambers, which are not airtight, they actually release bubbles as well. So when you're working the bait, they'll actually release bubbles as you're using it. And to me, that looks kind of natural. But more than anything, it's the way that these baits fall. So like with the air craw, I like to put that on a jig and you get the like lifts the whole bait up because they are very buoyant. The craw arms are up in the air. With the lizard is amazing on a Texas rig or a Carolina rig because it wants to hover more. So they've got, all of them have these very flat bottoms. So when you pull it, they really do glide well because the air chambers are wanting to keep the bait up. So when you mix the air in with the flat belly, they just glide so good. So like when I Texas rig these, I never peg them. I always leave my bullet weight unpegged so that, when the bait falls, I get the maximum gliding out of these baits. it really is something that is, as I've gotten older, I wish I had known this when I was younger, how productive they are, because I would have bought a pile of these. Right now, I mean, I've got enough of each style for the time being, but it's one of those things I just wish I could easily get, because they do sell for, like 10 or 15 bucks a bag now on the secondary market, but it's because there's demand for it and people really like them. They really do work well. So if you don't have any, guys, I really recommend, if you can find some of the old Riverside floating air series, so the lizards, the craws, the French fries, you should check them out because they can be really good. I've had enough experiences now in the last 10 or 15 years that have really been eye-opening. And it's one of those baits. I always have a few bags in my boat for certain tournament circumstances, as well as just fishing up here when I know fishing is really tough. It seems like it generates some additional bites, especially when the fish are not tight to the bottom. If they're up a little bit and you need to get your bait up, or you want to really slow down your fall, these air baits, these floating air baits, really do seem to do that, because you get a super slow fall and they just want to glide. They don't necessarily want to sink to the bottom. They want to glide all over the place. And I think that's something that triggers the fish to bite. So guys, if you've used them before, let me know in the comment section if you agree or disagree. If you haven't used them before, I suggest you try to find some, or at least next time you go out and you see somebody selling some of their old tackle, check them out. They're not that old. Like I said, you can, occasionally still find them still on the shelves of some bait shops. But give them a try, guys. They work well. Just one of those discontinued baits I wanted to point out to you. If you didn't have them, you should try to get some. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Another video coming out tomorrow.